Hey, this is Lance of 20-Sided Night.
And I'm Evan.
And today we're going over So You Want to Be
Teddy Roosevelt.
Before we go into much about the 26th president of these new United States, I want to just ask you all to please, for the love of my God, subscribe and click the notification bell to be warned when other videos come out, and also share us with your friends. It helps us a lot to grow. Please do it if you'll whip me. My God, it'll whip me. But yeah, a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt. This was your idea for this fabulous 4th of July that's currently now. So tell us a little bit about him.
Well, like I said, he's the 26th president of these new United States. One of the things we did while building him, like all of our characters for So You Want to Be, we did use the standard array to make his stats. We did give him a 13 for his strength, a 12 for his dexterity. We gave him the 8 in his constitution just because he was famously a very sickly boy, basically the 1800s version of a bubble boy. But he just did push-ups and kettlebell lifts and other old-timey exercises until he was a fit boy.
Yeah, probably some wind sprints, probably eating some Ralston.
No, Ralston wasn't even around yet. He did this pre-Ralston.
Oh, that's why everything was in black and white.
And we also gave him a 10 to wisdom because he wasn't a dummy, but also he was famously bad with things like money. His both of his wives and his family members in his older age, they wouldn't give him his checkbook. They just give him an amount of money each day, and he would go off and be a rascal with it, because otherwise he'd spend all of his money on other stuff.
Also, another thing too is wisdom. If you're using his wisdom for more like perceiving things and looking around and whatnot, it's like his senses. It was some interview where it was an interview asked him, "Hey, so are you a good shot?" And his response was something along the lines of, "Well, I'm not a good shot, but I shoot a lot." That could probably play towards his wisdom. Also, maybe for his lower dexterity, but I digress.
Yeah. We gave him a 14 for his intelligence because he was a smart lad. He read a lot. He graduated from some school. I think, Lance, you've heard it. Some weird East Coast school. It's like Harvard or something. I don't know.
Let's see, I went to Dartmouth, so Harvard, that's like a tech college.
What's Dartmouth? Is that like another like tech school? Is that like an Aggie school? And we gave him his best abilities as charisma, because you don't get to be the president of these United States by being a wallflower. And because we used the variant human while making his character, his 2 +1s that he's automatically going to get off the bat is a +1 to Constitution, just to show that he did just start doing a lot of push-ups until he was a strong boy, and also his charisma, just because, again, don't get to be president by just being like real shy boy.
And a little bit about his charisma, probably hone those charismatic skills, whether it be intimidation, deception, or persuasion, from being a colonel in the United States Army from the years of 1882 to 1886. I'm not reading from a sheet back here either. It's something I know full and well from being a full-blooded American. And you will too. You'll gain your citizenship after watching this. You hear me, Britons? You're all America now. Manifest Destiny Part 2, bitch. So a little bit about his feats. We gave him 2 feats. One was the Keen Mind feat. It increases his intelligence by 1 to a maximum of 20. He's a real smart fella, and it works well with that. A few other things it gives him: you'll always know which direction is north with the Keen Mind feat, and you also always know how many hours left until sunrise or sunset. Additionally, you can accurately call anything you've seen or heard within this past month. The few things that'll go into here, if you want to roleplay this out more, it can be the knowing how many hours left from sunrise to sunset, as well as always with knowing direction is north. The best ways to do that would be he has a compass, probably.
Yeah.
And he also just has a watch with him, or a pocket watch. Since time did progress a fair bit when Teddy Roosevelt was bopping around being president and making noise, that did sort of exist, whether he fell through a time portal or if you just want to play in a more advanced game, there you go. And maybe he just never loses this compass and pocket watch just because he doesn't. As far as the being able to remember something that happened within the past month, one way to do that, I believe it was also mentioned that Teddy Roosevelt was claimed to have a photographic memory, and
read a book a day.
Yeah, and also reading a book a day, which, by God. So yeah, he was a real smart fella, so that's probably not out of bounds either. We also gave him the toughness feat. You actually decided this one.
Yeah, because there's this one time he was about to give a speech, and some guy came up and shot him. And instead of going to the hospital like a regular person, he literally said, "It's going to take more than that to kill a bull moose." Chuckled, went and gave an hour-and-a-half speech, and then afterwards probably said, "Okay, fine, everyone. If you'll stop complaining, I'll go to the hospital." God, when did you guys become so uncool?
Yeah, they made presidents a lot tougher back then. Some of you can take notes.
For his languages, he is going to be able to speak Common and 2 other languages. The first other language is going to be because just the fact that humans, they know how to speak an extra language, but also because for his noble background, it does give him access to know a second language. He could, in theory, have access to a third language if, depending on the favorite enemy he picks. We'll go over that later, but basically, if you pick a humanoid and they speak a language, you can learn their language, but if you pick something like bear, you won't be able to speak bear. For his weapon and arm proficiencies, because he is a fighter and a ranger, he is going to be able to use any sort of armor and weapons. So if he does lose one of his fabulous guns or his famous Tiffany hunting knife that he always carried around with him, he'll be able to pick up whatever he's able to find on the ground and still kick ass and take names with it.
And he was always talking about the Tiffany hunting knife. Like any situation he'll bring up.
It's like always low-key flexing. Also, because of the fact that he is using the gunslinger subclass, he is going to be proficient with Tinkerer's tools. Speaking of his weapons and armor that he was using, we did decide to go off the weapons that are given in the Talador campaign setting. It's not actually in the book. It's going to direct you to where you can download the PDF, but once you take a look at that PDF, we are using the weapons from there. We're going to give him the pepper box. I would roleplay it as just a revolver because they had those back then. They're functionally the same because they're a 6-shot pistol. We're going to give him the scatter shotgun also just because it's a shotgun and he was a famous hunter and that's what's used to hunt a lot of animals. The only different thing about it is it does go in a cone, and if you are next to someone, it's going to deal 2d8 piercing instead of just the 1d8 piercing. And we also are going to give him a musket just to reflect that he did use a single-shot bolt-action weapon in the Spanish-American War.
It's not exactly the same musket and single-shot rifle, but if we went too far off track here, it'd probably take a lot more GM buy-in to have a rifle or anything like that. Or if you don't want to go off of the guns that are just in the Talador's PDF, just because you don't want your GM to have to buy in with, oh, I'm using the supplemental book, also the secondary supplemental PDF, you can also just point out that there are things like revolvers, muskets, and rifles on page 268 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And since you are skimping on armor, just going with the chainmail that you receive as a first level fighter, you would hopefully be able to save up quite a bit more and purchase enough for these guns. I recommend at least getting the revolver and that Tiffany hunting knife.
Well, he's just going to have that coming out the womb, dude.
Oh yeah, womb to the tomb, Tiffany hunting knife. Knife, boys!
His abilities that he is going to get from being a level 6 fighter and a level 1 ranger, his level 1 fighting style is going to be archery, which does give a +2 to any range attack, which is going to be nice and sort of show that he's not the most naturally skilled shooter, but he is very well practiced. The second ability he's getting is, like all fighters, Second Wind. Probably also another reason how he was able to say, I don't got time to bleed, I've got to do a speech. He is going to have Action Surge, which is going to be useful for making multiple attacks. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that if you are using the Taladori guide, with things like the rifles and the scatter shotgun, they can't hold that many bullets in the chamber, so it will require you to take an action to reload, so you probably won't be able to use your
musket.
Yeah, your extra attack on your musket until level 11. But you can always just use your pepper box to go take that.
That's another thing to really push for, probably using just the rifles and revolvers that are in the DMG. I know in some of our games we've homebrewed it in where you can just use the crossbow expert feat to do that, but I probably wouldn't rely on your GM giving you any extra benefits, especially from Ushslubs, mainly just because that's asking for a lot to your GM to say yes to, and we want these to be easy for players to use, but also easy for GMs to be able to put in their games.
And then because of his gunfighter subclass, he is going to get proficiency with Tinkerer's tools, which can show how he was really into self-reliance and be able to do things on your own. And he probably learned how to clean his guns better and make bullets. Another thing, if you are going off of the Taladori guide, one thing we do for crafting your ammo is, for my character who's a gunslinger, we always have him go and buy a spell component pouch because it does have basically everything you need to make bullets. It's got bat guano for the nitrate, so you need sulfur, and you also need charcoal because I don't know, I didn't do good in chemistry, but I know if you put them all together, it makes freedom food. And because he is a gunslinger, he is going to get grit points. Because of his lower wisdom score, he is only going to get 1. But luckily, as a ranged fighter, you do get grit points back after a long rest, or after killing an enemy with a gun, or getting a critical shot. So there's chances to use your grit points to do things like your Deadeye ability to get advantage on an attack, which is pretty good.
Which can double the odds of getting a critical effect if you're rolling 2 dice. Also, since he is a fighter, they typically rack up quite a few kills, and so since he's shooting at people safely at range, he'll be able to hopefully regain those grit points easier. For his natural explorer archetype as being a first level ranger, we gave him the forest terrain, him being responsible for the creation of these United States national parks.
Yeah, mostly because he liked being a rascal and wilding out in the forest, and he didn't like how people were cutting down the forest and not rebuilding him. He's basically, listen, if I can't wild out in these forests, we're going to have a problem, and I've got a gun, so come on.
And a Tiffany hunting knife. I mean, come on. Also, being a natural explorer, loving the forest, this would also be a pretty good in for him to get a good relationship going with the druid, or really any sort of naturalist of the group. If, say, there is some quest going on where some filthy orcs or some filthy dwarves, they're looking to encroach on nature itself to really harm it for civilization to grow, Teddy Roosevelt be coming belligerently through the forest, shooting them down, making sure that Mother Nature and Smokey the Bear are staying safe. For his favorite enemy, we didn't decide on what enemy to give him. You could pick orcs or dwarves or elves or bears, mostly because they would be dangerous to nature. You could also pick the Spanish if you're going into that time. Really, it's up to you.
Listen, you gotta remember the Maine.
Yes, they didn't. That's why. Sorry, Spaniards, but it was a worse and horrible time back then. But up to you would fit best in your game there with that. A little bit, how would you use good old Teddy Roosevelt in your game?
Well, I would use, like we said, he's a ranged fighter. The one nice thing about him is because his highest score is an 18 just because of various abilities and feats he has, and an ability score improvement. It's an 18 charisma, which is pretty good. Plus, he is proficient in persuasion because of his noble background. So it's going to be one of those odd times where the fighter can be the face character instead of like, hey, fighter and barbarian. So we're going to have you sit at the kids' table while the adults talk to the Lord and try to figure out what we need to do next or what a reward is, because all you're good at is punching and stabbing things. So you go play over there. You
will have one less person. If he is going to be your face character, you might have one less person to keep the rogue out of trouble in case, like, oh, I'm just going to go and steal everything and be edgy. Teddy Roosevelt won't be there to kick him in the shins, but he'll be there to
try to talk his way out of jail time.
Alright, well, thanks again for watching 20-Sided Night. Please remember to share this video with your friends, especially to celebrate 4th of July. And also just to click that notification bell because Zeus knows we need it. Thanks again for watching 20-Sided Night, and bye for now.
Also, if you're watching this, you've now become an American citizen, whether you like it or not. This July 4th is going to be America's holiday, but the world's holiday, when we all decided that we will not go quietly into this good night.
Yeah, I remember when President Roosevelt gave that speech right after he kicked them alien and commies back into hell.